Overruled. You can answer the question.
In my mind, criminalist Mazzola and I were working as a team, and it was not relevant who did what specifically. We were working so close together, it didn't matter.
My question, sir, is, wouldn't you have greater confidence in your recollection of who collected which item if the form had been filled out at the time of collection?
Yes.
Now, you testified on direct examination that as to one of these items at Bundy, number 52, that you were not present when that was collected.
That's correct.
And you testified, did you not, in August of this year at a proceeding? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
And were you asked these questions and did you give these answers? I'm now at page 531, Mr. Goldberg.
I think you misspoke yourself. August of this year, August of last year.
Did I say August of this year? It's getting difficult, Judge. It is August of last year.
Let's just not make it true.
Sorry, counsel.
All right. Starting at page 531.
Which hearing? The Griffin hearing?
Yeah. Question. Mr. Fung, you were the criminalist who collected the alleged drops of blood found at the Bundy crime scene, is that correct? Answer. I was one of two criminalists who was there collecting evidence, yes. Question. Okay. And did you personally collect the stains that have been given the item numbers 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52? Answer. I was present during the collection of them and assisted in the collection of those stains. Yes. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
Yes, I did.
And in that answer, you included item number 52.
Yes, I did.
And then at page 536 of that same proceeding, you were asked these questions and gave these answers. Question, Mr. Fung, you mentioned that you were collecting the blood specimens with a colleague named Ms. Mazzola. Answer, yes. And with respect to the enumerated specimens, numbers 47 through 52, I believe you said that she did the collection and you observed her and, if need be, assisted her. Answer, to the best of my recollection, yes. You asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
Yes, I did.
And in the same proceeding again, at page 538, question, for each and every specimen that I just gave you as key numbers there, did you personally observe her collect them there, or were there 3 times where you were off collecting, or were there times that you were off collecting some specimens and she was collecting things at some distance from you? Answer, there were times that when I wasn't watching her all the time, no. Question, and so she would be collecting some of these withdrawn. As you sit here today, do you have a vivid memory as to which of the 60 or so items that you collected at Bundy she collected in your presence as opposed to those which were collected outside your presence? Answer, I do remember that the blood stains leading from where the victims were along the escape route, as it has been referred to in the past, is I was there with her, personally supervising her. Question, for each and every one of those, answer, I believe so, yes. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
I
transcripts that may be complete. On page 539, counsel.
Well, I don't think it's necessary, but I will for his benefit. Question, were there other bloodstains, however, that she collected at that scene which you personally did not supervise? Answer, yes. And as you sit here today, do you know which ones those were? Answer, not specifically, no. Okay?
Yes.
So in other words, at this hearing, you took great pains to indicate that you saw every one of those blood drops at Bundy, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52. That you personally observed Mr. Mazzola swatch all of those, right?
Wait a minute, I object. It mistakes the testimony.
Sustained.
Did you take great pains to testify that you observed Ms. Mazzola collect all those blood drops, including 52?
Yes.
And your testimony today here is that you did not see her collect 52.
The collection process involves many steps. It includes the documentation also and the identification. And in that respect, I was present during those phases of the collection process.
You were asked on direct examination, did you see her collect 52? You said no, right?
Yes.
All right. In this prior proceeding, 3 times, you were asked whether you saw her collect 52, and 3 times you said you saw it.
Could you repeat the question?
3 times you were asked if you saw Ms. Mazzola collect sample 52.
I object. That mistakes the evidence.
Sustained.
Were you asked at that split hearing on 3 different occasions if you observed her and whether she did the collection of item 52?
Your Honor, I object. That mistakes the evidence.
Sustained. Why don't you break it down to each individual question?
All right. Were you asked on 3 different occasions, just the same questions I just read to you before, whether or not you observed Ms. Mazzola collect the blood drops 47 through 52? You were asked that.
I object. That mistakes the evidence.
Oral.
If I could see the transcript, because I don't memorize everything.
Please tab the pages, take a look. Take your time.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say, after refreshing your recollection from this testimony, that you previously testified that you observed Ms. Mazzola collect item 52?
Well, that's, to the best of my recollection at that time, yes.
All right? And at that time, you were testifying that you saw her collect each of those 5 blood drops at Bundy, 47 through 52.
Yes.
And now, you have talked it over with Ms. Mazzola. Is that right?
Yes.
talked it over with anybody else?
To some extent, with Mr. Goldberg.
And after those discussions, you've now decided that you didn't observe her do that collection on item 52.
Your Honor, I'll object to the spade as to the word collect.
Overruled.
In the actual manipulation of the swatch and blood stain, that's correct.
Let's get back for a second to the role of the criminalist. Now, would you agree that it is the role of a criminalist to be an independent, unbiased forensic scientist?
Yes,
And you should not harbor a bias as to the result of an investigation one way or the other.
that's correct.
And actually, are you familiar with a gentleman named Barry Fisher?
Yes, I am.
And who is he?
He is the lab director of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Criminalistics Laboratory.
And are you familiar with his book on techniques of crime scene investigations?
I have seen it and referred to it on certain occasions.
Have you considered it in forming your opinions about the role of the criminalist in crime scene investigations?
Your Honor, I'll object to the spade as to the edition number.
Sustained.
Fifth edition.
I have not seen the 5th edition, no.
Well, would you agree that criminalists owe a duty to the truth,
Yes,
and that the sole obligation of a forensic practitioner is to serve the aims of justice?
yes,
And what is important is that a forensic scientist conduct the investigation in a thorough, competent fashion and submit findings and reports and through testimony in a factual and unbiased manner.
yes,
And would you agree that in your role as a criminalist, if you saw detectives using unsound procedures at a crime scene in gathering evidence, you would object?
Spade as to the criminal sound.
Overruled.
could you be a little more specific?
If you saw detectives using procedures which you felt would impair the integrity of evidence as they were collecting it, would you object?
Yes,
If you saw members of the coroner's office taking steps in the collection of evidence at a crime scene which you thought would impair the integrity of the evidence, would you object?
I would tell the officer in charge of the scene I'd give him my opinion, yes.
And in testifying as to the facts of any particular case, would you agree that you should not just go along with the questions that are asked, for example, by a prosecutor in terms of the facts? You should independently recollect them from your own knowledge when you testify.
Objection, argument.
Sustained.
Well, would you agree that it's important that a criminalist not leave out important facts from a recitation of what occurred because you thought it would harm the prosecution's case?
Yes,
And it would be inappropriate for a criminalist to ignore misconduct by any law enforcement official.
Well, that's irrelevant.
Sustained.
Now, you testified yesterday. You were asked by Mr. Goldberg, is Andrea Mazzola a trainee? And you answered, no, she's a criminalist. Remember that?
Yes.
Now, when you testified previously in August of this year, didn't you tell us that Andrea Mazzola on June 13th was still in training?
I don't remember my exact words.
Did you tell us that she was a student and you were her teacher?
Your Honor, calls for a page and transcript citation.
Yes.
All right. Just to make sure, Mr. Goldberg, we'll start with 536, and we'll go into 537. We asked these series of questions, and did you give these answers? Question.
Certainly.
Starting on line 14. Ready?
He'll tell us when he's ready.
I'm sorry?
He'll tell us when he's ready.
Okay, sorry.
Proceed.
Question. With respect to the enumerated specimens, numbers 47 through 52, I believe you said that she, Ms. Mazzola, did the collection and you observed her and, if need be, assisted her. Answer, to the best of my recollection, yes. Question. Okay, now is that the normal procedure, by the way, in cases where one criminalist does or another criminal acts as an observer? Answer, no. Question. Why was that done here, sir? Answer, it was just the luck of the draw in this case. Ms. Mazzola was the on-call criminalist, the homicide on-call criminalist, and I was also assigned to be her training officer that weekend. Now, you said you were her training officer that weekend. Is that because Ms. Mazzola is pretty new to all of this? Answer, she's still a criminalist one, yes. Question, so during the period that she went out there to collect the specimens on June 13th, she was still in training? Answer, yes. Question, and you were there in a sense as a supervisor or teacher, is that right? Answer, yes. Were you asked those questions? Did you give those answers?
Yes, I did.
Now, Mr. Fung, Ms. Mazzola on June 13th was doing collections at her third crime scene.
I'll object, no foundation.
Sustained.
Do you know how many crime scenes Andrea Mazzola had collected evidence at before she collected evidence in this case?
I don't recall the exact number, but it was around 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
To the best of my recollection.
In preparing for your testimony in this case, did you review the transcripts of your testimony and Ms. Mazzola's testimony at that hearing in August?
I only went over mine.
Did you discuss with Ms. Mazzola your upcoming testimony in this case?
Only things regarding the crime scenes, not testimony itself.
Did you discuss this issue of her being a trainee with anyone at the Scientific Investigation Unit?
Sustained.
Have you had any discussions of the issue of Ms. Mazzola being a trainee as it relates to this case?
Yes.
Overruled.
Now, you testified in the grand jury in this case, did you not, sir?
Yes, I did.
And before you testified in the grand jury, did you have discussions with anybody about the fact that Andrea Mazzola, a person who had done, as far as you knew, only 5 crime scenes, you think? Is that right?
Around there, yes.
Could be less.
Yes.
Had collected evidence in this case before you testified in the grand jury?
I don't recall discussing that with anyone.
All right. Well, looking at the evidence collected in this case, is it true that Miss Mazzola was the one who swatched item 47? That's the first blood drop at Bundy, right?
Yes.
She did 48,
Yes.
49,
Yes.
50.
Yes.
52.
Yes.
That's the one you're now telling us you weren't even there to observe her do the swatching.
I don't recall being there, no.
And those were critical items in this case.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that with the exception of 55 and 56, which were blood from the outline of footprints, that Miss Mazzola was the one who swatched every blood stain at Bundy?
This states the evidence.
I'm asking him.
Footprints.
Or will.
That's not entirely true, no.
You did 50, you swatched 55?
'55 was... Yes, I did.
You swatched 56?
Yes, I did.
You didn't swatch any other stain at Bundy, did you?
Yes, I did.
Which one did you swatch?
I don't recall exactly which ones I assisted her with, but there were portions of stains where I actually took the tweezers and did the manipulation myself.
All right. Is, other than 55 and 56, Miss Mazzola participated, actually swatched every other stain at Bundy?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Rockingham. She swatched the red stain on the handle of the Bronco.
Under my direct supervision, yes.
She swatched stain 4,
Yes,
5,
yes,
6,
yes,
7,
yes,
8.
yes,
She did all of them.
yes.
Now, the Bundy glove found at Bundy.
Yes,
Andrea Mazzola was the one that picked that up, put it in the brown paper bag.
the glove at Bundy.
Yes.
Yes,
The watch cap at Bundy. Andrea Mazzola was the person that picked that up and put it in the bag.
yes,
And incidentally, before you testified in this case, you reviewed videotapes, didn't you?
for this case,
Yes.
yes,
There were a whole two sets of videotapes you reviewed with the prosecution,
yes,
and these were videotapes from the media of you and Miss Mazzola, and part of it was you and Miss Mazzola at the Bundy scene.
yes.
Now, incidentally, did you see any other videotapes besides the compilation of 2 cassettes that were provided by the defense to the court
Videotapes concerning,
of anything concerning this case? Any collections during this case?
I haven't seen any other compilations, no,
Any other videotapes at all?
on television.
Nothing that's been provided to you by anybody at the laboratory?
can't remember any.
Have the district attorney shown you any other videotapes in connection with this case?
Yes.
His answer is yes.
And what were those?
There was a tape made by a company called Decision Quest.
And what was that tape of?
That was a tape of the Bundy location.
And were you present when that was made?
No.
Well, let's talk about your testimony at the grand jury. Mr. Goldberg, I'm now at testimony of June 22nd, 1994, at page 379, line 8. Do you recall being asked questions about the blood drops at Bundy and who swatched them?
At Bundy? Yes.
All right? Were you asked these questions and did you give these answers? Question: were there blood drops next to those shoe prints? Answer: yes, there were. Question: did you attempt to retrieve and preserve the blood found in those blood drops? Answer: yes, I did. Question: what did you do? Answer: I transferred the blood drops onto cloth squares or cloth swatches. What I did was wet the cloth swatches with distilled water and then applied them to the stain, the red stains, which were later determined to be blood, and they were transferred on in that method. Were you asked those questions? Did you give those answers?
Yes, I did.
And that wasn't accurate testimony, was it?
It was accurate in the sense that I did perform some of those functions on, but I don't recall exactly which ones I did them on.
Mr. Fung, didn't you just tell us that Andrea Mazzola was the one that swatched the blood drops 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52?
She was there and did partake in those, yes.
She was the one that did the swatching, the distilled water on the swatch, right? I think you
Have you
did.
finished your answer?
No, well, I need to explain more. During the collection of that trail, I also participated in the direct collection of the bloodstains, meaning I took hold of the tweezers and swatched some of those stains.
Did you tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola, a person who was in training, swatched those blood drops 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52? Did you tell them that?
I'd ask for transcript in case.
No, the question is, did he tell the grand jury that? Yes or no?
I don't recall that I did tell them that.
I mean, you didn't tell them that, right?
That's argumentative.
Did you or did you not tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola participated in swatching those blood drops at Bundy?
No,
The answer is no, you didn't tell them, right?
that's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about the blood drops at Rockingham, and the stain on the Bronco, okay? Mr. Goldberg, I'm at grand jury testimony at page 390, starting at line 6. Question: how did you recover them? Answer: I recovered in the same manner described before, where I would wet a cloth swatch or several cloth swatches, if needed, apply it to the red stain, and then let the red stain transfer onto the cloth swatch. Were you asked those questions? Did you give those answers?
Yes,
So you didn't tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola was actually the one that swatched that red stain off the handle of the Bronco, right?
at the time,
Did you tell them that?
no.
You said you did it.
Yes,
And you said the same thing about stain 4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
6.
I don't recall, but yes.
All right. In other words, you testified that you did all the swatching at Rockingham when in fact it was Andrea Mazzola, right?
No, I testified that I did the collection.
No. Did you not testify that you recovered them in the same manner you described before, where I would wet a cloth swatch or several cloth swatches if needed, apply it to the red stain, and then let the stain transfer onto the cloth swatch, right? You said that.
Yes.
You were telling the grand jury that you did it.
Yes.
Now, with respect to the Bundy glove, Andrea Mazzola was the one that picked up that Bundy glove.
Yes.
Mr. Harris? Your Honor, at this point, we'd like to play a videotape. Maybe I'll lay this foundation for it. You've seen a videotape, have you not, Mr. Fung, of Andrea Mazzola picking up the glove at Bundy and the watch cap?
Yes.
You saw that before you testified here.
Yes.
When you testified at the grand jury, you were testifying on June 22nd.
Yes.
That was just 9 days after this happened.
Yes.
Can we show the tape? Well, while he's searching for the tape, let me move on and let's discuss your testimony about the Bundy glove at the grand jury.
Perhaps I don't know where exactly they're going to put it.
Please.
So I need to see it.
All right. Ms. Fitzpatrick, can we just see it on council's monitors? I'm sorry? Is there audio on this, Mr. Harris? No, sir. All right.
You need to turn these monitors up.
Mr. Goldberg?
Okay.
All right.
Stop that for a second, please. Okay, now, Howard, can you stop that? No, we can't stop. What we've seen so far, that's Andrea Mazzola, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And she is picking up first the Bundy glove, is that correct? You want to see that again from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. I'm sorry. Is that the beginning, Howard? Okay, I'm sorry, that's the hat, is that correct?
Yes.
And she's putting it in a bag, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. That's a car passing in front. Now, do you recall, Mr. Fung, if you were anywhere around observing her doing this?
I don't specifically recall it, no.
That's her picking up the bag, folding it, putting the evidence tag by a tree, I guess. Is that correct?
I don't know if it was by a tree.
By the edge of the steps.
It appears so.
And now she's picking up the glove.
Yes.
And between, you can finish. Picking up the knit hat and picking up the glove, she did not change her gloves.
I don't know if she did or not.
Oh, did you see that in your observation? This is not the first time you've observed this tape, is it?
No.
You've looked at it a few times, haven't you? That's okay. You can take it. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Now, when you testified in front of the grand jury 9 days after that occurred, were you asked these questions and did you give these answers?
Can I leave it?
Page 377 to 378, starting at line 8. Question: was one of these items a brown man's leather glove? Answer: yes, it was. Question: directing your attention to the set of photographs, People's 26, and you recall that when you testified in the grand jury was photographs of the Bundy glove, correct?
I don't recall, but
You recall being shown that in the grand jury, photographs of the Bundy glove?
I recall photographs, but I don't remember what
All right.
number it was.
You don't remember it was 26, but you recall during your testimony that Ms. Clark pointed to pictures of the Bundy glove?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us if you see the glove you have just referred to? Answer: if I may take a closer look. Yes. Answer: yes. The glove I'm referring to is shown there in photograph A. The person is pointing to it there. It's also in photograph B in the bottom of the left-hand corner. It's in photograph C next to the photo ID. Question: in photographs A, B, and C, do they actually depict the glove in the location and condition you found it? Yes. Question: what did you do with respect to that glove? Answer: initially, I measured to see, to locate where it was, found, documented that location, and then placed it in a paper bag for later processing. We asked those questions. Did you give those answers?
Yes.
And that testimony wasn't accurate, was it?
That I personally did all that stuff? No.
Right. You did not tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola was the one that picked up the hat and picked up the glove, right?
That's correct.
Now, you did not tell the grand jury when you were describing collecting this evidence about the existence of Andrea Mazzola at all, did you?
Well, it's irrelevant unless he was asked who else was there.
Sustained.
Well, you were asked a whole series of questions in the grand jury about how evidence was collected.
Yes.
And you were asked specifically about items that you considered at that time important to this case?
Well,
It's just saying, it's irrelevant, what he thought was important at that time.
Well,
But I think you've already established that, what the testimony was, counsel.
okay. And that testimony you gave the grand jury was under oath.
Yes.
Now, did you decide on your own not to mention to the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola was involved in collecting the evidence in this case?
I don't think it was a conscious decision one way or the other. It's just, I gave the answers as they were asked to me.
And left her out?
Yes.
And you didn't have any discussions with anyone at the laboratory, SID, before you testified? Or did you have any discussions with anybody at the laboratory before you testified?
Concerning what?
Concerning your testimony?
Before the grand jury?
Yes.
I don't recall having...
Talked with, who's Michelle Kessler?
Michelle Kessler is the chief forensic chemist. She's the lab director of our laboratory.
Did you discuss your testimony with Michelle Kessler before you went before the grand jury?
I don't recall discussing it with her.
Did you discuss your testimony with Greg Matheson?
I don't believe so.
He, at that time, was the head of serology.
Yes.
Did you discuss your testimony in the grand jury with Ms. Clark?
I don't believe so.
Before you testified in the grand jury, you did not discuss your testimony with Ms. Clark?
I don't recall discussing it with her, no.
So I take it then that there was no discussion between, withdrawn. Did you have a discussion with anyone else in the district attorney's office before you testified at the grand jury?
I don't recall discussing the case with anybody, no.
So there were no discussions whatsoever before you testified in the grand jury in this case about your testimony with anyone from the district attorney's office?
I don't recall any.
So in other words, the failure to mention that Andrea Mazzola was involved in the collection of evidence in this case was something that you decided to do on your own.
Your Honor, I'll object because there's no evidence he was asked.
Well,
It wasn't a conscious decision. That's just the way I answered the questions.
Did you answer those questions in that way, leaving Andrea Mazzola out, because you were worried about the fact that a trainee had been involved in collecting important items of evidence in this case?
No.
Not just involved, but she had a major role, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Not only did she collect the bloodstains that we've talked about and the glove and the hat, but she also did crime scene diagrams
Yes.
of Rockingham
Yes.
and Bundy.
Yes.
Now, you subsequently testified at a preliminary hearing in this case, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And at the preliminary hearing, were you asked these questions, and did you give these answers? And out of completeness, I'm starting at testimony of July 7th at page 39, line 17. Tell me when you're ready, Mr. Goldberg.
all right, Mr. Scheck,
Can I?
proceed.
Question. How do you collect blood stains from a crime scene? Answer. Generally, stains are transferred onto a swatch by first wetting the swatch with distilled water, applying it to the stain so the blood is absorbed onto the swatch, and at that point it's put into a plastic bag and then put into a coin envelope where it is labeled with the corresponding photo ID number. Question, is it is also your job, sir, to package all of the evidence that you collect and label it with what is known as a DR number? Answer, yes, it is. Question, and did you do so in this case? Answer, yes, I did. Now I'm going to direct your attention to items number 1 through 8. Those are the Bundy, the stains at Rockingham, correct?
1 through 8, some of them were stains, yes.
Did you prepare a report documenting what items numbers 1 through 8 are in this case? Answer, yes, I did. Did you collect them, sir? I did, along with my assistant criminalist, Mazzola. Question, is that another criminalist with the Los Angeles Police Department? Answer, yes. Question, do you usually send 2 criminalists to a crime scene? Answer, not always, no. Question, what was this criminalist doing with you on that particular day? Answer, she was there to learn how to process crime scenes. Answer, you were showing her how it is done. Answer, yes. Were you asked those questions, and did you give those answers?
Yes.
All right. Now, when you said that Andrea Mazzola was there to learn how to process crime scenes, and you were showing her how it was done, you were intending to convey, were you not, that you did most of the work and she was observing it.
I don't know if that was my intention with that statement.
Well, this was a preliminary hearing that you knew on national television.
Yes.
And did you have any reluctance in testifying that it was Andrea Mazzola that swatched primarily, all right, you said you swatched 1 or 2 times the Bundy blood drops, is that right?
May have been more than that.
She did primarily all the Bundy blood drops, right?
She did a good portion of them, yes.
And she did the Rockingham blood stains exclusively.
Well, it's vague as to whether you mean swatching.
She swatched the Rockingham blood stains exclusively.
I wouldn't say exclusively.
Well, you didn't swatch the blood stains at Rockingham, did you?
There may have been times when I did take and show her techniques that I use.
Do you remember that now as you sit here?
I may have.
Well,
I don't,
did you or didn't you?
to the best of I don't recall specifically which ones, but I do recall having manipulated or not manipulated, but taken the tweezers and used them at Rockingham.
You do?
Yes. But she did the most of
She
the...
did most of it,
She
right?
did most of it, yes.
Right. But when you were testifying at the preliminary hearing, you were saying that you were showing her how it was done, and weren't you trying to convey the impression that you did it and she was thus just there as an observer?
I'll check because it misstates this testimony.
Sustained.
You were asked at the preliminary hearing, in these questions and answers that I read to you, do you usually send 2 criminalists to a crime scene? And your answer was not always no. You recall that?
Yes.
Now, wouldn't it be is it the policy of the LAPD Scientific Investigation Unit to send at least 2 criminalists to a double homicide such as this case?
I wouldn't... At that time?
Yeah.
At that time, there was no hard and fast rule to send 2 criminals to a double, no.
It's your testimony that on June 13th, as far as you were concerned, it would not be the policy of the Scientific Investigations Unit of the LAPD to send 2 criminalists to a double homicide.
That's not the policy at that time,
In-
no.
Sorry. Well, you're aware, I just have a few minutes for the break. You're aware that there is a policy about notifying supervisors in certain cases,
Yes.
all right? And is this in that manual, do you know, the manual that you are not so sure you're familiar with?
I have not reviewed that manual that you're referring to.
Well, how do
if
you
it
know about this
exists.
policy?
This is a policy that was given to the criminalist verbally.
Okay, so
Of
you
the
got this
laboratory.
verbally, you've never seen a piece of paper about this policy?
Well, what policy are you referring to?
Well, do you know of a policy that says that supervisors must be notified immediately when a case, number one, involves an individual or a group of notoriety?
Yes.
And that the second factor in this policy is that there might be a significant number of press at the scene.
Your Honor, this line of questioning is irrelevant.
That is one of the factors in determining whether to call a supervisor, yes.
Right. And the reason that press is important, would you not agree, is that when the press get to a scene, that makes it difficult sometimes for a criminalist to collect evidence.
Not generally, no.
Well, if the press arrives at a scene, sometimes that draws a crowd.
Yes.
It may be difficult to keep people away from the crime scene, getting into it.
It's a possibility.
And the policy about immediate notification of supervisors includes any case that might be considered unusual
Yes.
and involves two or more than two murders, correct? More than two victims.
Yes.
Right, so out of the four factors, wouldn't you agree that this case certainly fit in to at least three?
Of notifying a supervisor?
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason cases are picked out to notify supervisors is that these are the kinds of cases that would involve additional support and extra attention.
Possibly.
And you knew right away that this was that kind of case, right?
I knew this was going to be a high-profile case.
And when you testified in the grand jury, you knew that this kind of case, from the moment you got it on June 13th, would be that kind of case.
A high-profile case?
Well, high profile, one that would involve press, one that was unusual.
I don't know if it's unusual, but it is high-profile.
One that would involve immediate notification of supervisors,
Yes.
one that would likely call for at least two criminalists.
I can't determine what a supervisor would say in that
All right.
instant.
I guess this is an appropriate place to stop.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess as far as the jury is concerned now until tomorrow morning. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't fight over the TV. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. Don't conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Be kind to each other. All right? I'll see you back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. All right, Mr. Fung, you may step down. You're ordered to return at 9 o'clock.